The Dr. Ray Podcast is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio. Here's today's monologue with Dr. Ray Guarendi.
What I'm about to say is very selective. My audience is very selective. By and large, the audience here is the audience on pretty much all of Catholic media. Is it people who want to grow in their faith, want to walk closer to the Lord, believe in God. Various faith traditions, mostly Catholic, but we get some folks from other traditions. So that's just a very select group already. And in that select group, they do mirror what is going on in the general society, although I think there are probably a few nuances of difference in the group that calls in. If you've listened to this program at all, and if you've ever sat in my office invisible, you would know that one of the far more common problems I deal with is parents who have been estranged, shut off, excommunicated by their either young adults or even their middle-aged adults. Common, so very common. And indeed, a couple weeks ago on this program, I had an article that talked about sounded like a pretty traditional, well, I don't even want to say the word traditional, secular psychology perspective that said a lot of young adults are writing off their parents. Rightfully so, was the tone of the article. Rightfully so. Because we realize now that what used to be looked at as just faulty parenting or struggling parenting or just human parenting, we now realize is a lot more pathological. That we're expanding the boundaries of what is acceptable parenting as we look back on it. That was the tone of the article. It was awful. And I've noticed here that a lot of folks calling in or people I see in my office, they've been written off. Now, there's a certain chain of events. These are generalizations, but here's how it goes. Typically, the older generation is more religious. And that's borne out by the stats. Something like 40% of Gen Zers, up to about age 27, 28, are nuns. And not sister nuns, they are nuns of no religion. Believe in God or even pay attention to God. The effect is the same. Now, that's changing a little bit. It has plateaued out. It's not increasing anymore, according to recent stats. And there are even little spurts here and there of younger people embracing the faith, especially young males, more so than young females. Interestingly enough, isn't it? I have to study that dynamic sometime. So given that, the folks who I have contact with, by and large, are what you would consider more religious. And their young adult children, by and large, are not. Now, these are, again, generalizations. I'm just kind of linking this out. To the degree that these young adults are not content in their lives, they make bad decisions. They have had a history, especially if in their 30s and 40s, of relationship problems, life problems, struggle. They're just not settled individuals. They're unhappy. They're discontent. They're anxious. And of course, they look for someone to blame. And of course, again, the easiest target is their parents. You did this to me. A percentage of them go to therapy, which is what you would expect. If you're unhappy with life, then you try therapy. The stats are very, very high. The percentage of adults in America who have at least tried therapy is way up there. It's over 50%. So it stands to reason, the more discontent, the more likely you are to approach a therapist. In general, therapists practice a very secular type of psychology, which is we look closely to give contentment to the individual. It is most important that the individual feel at peace in their existence. And if there's anybody that's rattling that peace, as they describe it, that is now, then we have to consider separation from those peace disturbers, which oftentimes are parents. So we start out, religious parents raise the kids pretty much in religion. The kids shed religion, want no part of it. They're shaped by the culture, and they look at their parents like your throwbacks. I don't like your religious views. I don't like your morals. I don't like your politics. I don't like the way you look at life. And you screwed me up. Typically, they are not running their lives well. There's bad relationships, broken marriages, frustrations, anxieties, depressions, social, educational, career struggles. Well, that kind of discontent leads to therapy. They go to therapy, and the therapist, listening to what they say and how they describe their parents, which is so fascinating, in many cases says, wow, you need to put some distance between those folks. From what you're describing, they sound toxic. Have you set boundaries? Maybe we need to just have, for your own mental well-being, some patience and distance from them. Because that's kind of where individual therapy goes. It focuses on the self. Whereas Christianity focuses on the other. So there you have it. A confirmation that indeed I'm not the one who needs to look at myself and what I've done to my parents. I need to recognize that my parents have done this to me. And the therapist says so. I can't tell you how many times I've come across that chain of events. And I've noticed that it's only slowly starting to become apparent. I noticed this years ago. Prager University came up with it. He was talking once, this was before his accident, he was talking once about how many calls he got. And I don't know if this was in a particular show or some topic area. And he was kind of surprised. The number of older parents who called in and said, I have no relation with my young adults or my middle-aged adult kids. I can't see my grandkids. They don't want me in their lives. I've tried to reach out. I've tried to apologize for whatever, but they don't want to hear it. And I read a column by Dennis Prager about this. He pointed it out, and I thought, finally somebody in the secular world is noticing that this is happening. I believe it is unprecedented in human history. That the next generation in such huge numbers looked back on the earlier generation that raised them and said, ew, you're pathological. Only part of you. It's interesting generational dynamic.
More of Dr. Ray's monologues can be found on his website, drray.com. Monologues as well as full-length programs of The Doctor Is In can be heard at AveMariaRadio.net and EWTN.com/radio.